Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've got quite a stack of sources here today,
We do.
and we're digging into something really fundamental, I think, to how we connect. It's about what it means to be welcoming.
Right. And that has two sides, doesn't it? How approachable we are,
Yeah,
and
ourselves.
then how we actively, offer hospitality to others.
Exactly. And we're pulling from a pretty interesting mix. What do we got?
Okay, so there's a life hack piece on like the nuts and bolts of approachability.
Mhm.
Then a really in-depth article from the Community Toolbox that views hospitality almost as a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
Some fascinating research published in Emotion about physical warmth and social feelings.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, an article from VTech Works looking at empathy, specifically in the hospitality industry. Then perspectives from the Institute for Family Studies on how hospitality can actually strengthen families.
Okay.
And finally, a Psychology Today piece on, well, accepting people as they are.
Wow. Okay. So quite the range. Our mission, then, I guess, is to weave all these threads together.
Yeah, try and find those key insights, right? Things that can help us make connections, well, easier, maybe deeper.
More meaningful, drawing lessons from, like you said, ancient texts, modern psych, and
Yeah.
from the service industry. All right. Let's get into it.
Okay, so maybe start with that first piece, making ourselves approachable.
Yeah, sounds good.
The LifeHack article, it makes a really strong point that this isn't just, nice to have. It's actually pretty important.
How so?
Well, they link it to career success, being more likable generally, and just making people feel comfortable around you.
Mm.
Life just flows better.
That makes total sense. If people feel they can approach you, yeah, more doors open. And it had some really practical tips, didn't it?
It did. Very actionable. First up, eye contact and smiling. Yeah, making eye contact, it says, makes people way more likely to actually engage. And the smile, the key is sincerity, right?
Right, not like a fake plastered on thing.
Exactly. Timing it genuinely,
Hmm.
like when you first meet or if they smile or you share a little moment, it's that positive recognition signal.
And then there's the physical side. Body posture.
Oh, yeah, big one.
Yeah.
Open posture. It suggests like shoulders back, not slouching, maybe leaning back a bit if you're sitting.
And hands.
Keep them visible, relaxed, not crossed or jammed in pockets. That closed-off posture is just an instant don't talk to me sign.
And speaking of signs, the phone. That's a huge one they mentioned.
Totally. Having your phone out or even like a hat pulled way down, it just screams unavailable, even if you don't mean it to.
An unintentional barrier. Okay, so what about when you are talking to someone?
Well, there's this interesting rule of thumb they suggest. The 3 questions for every 1 statement idea.
Okay. Like a ratio.
Sort of, yeah. But it's not about literally counting. It's more a reminder to focus outwards first, ask about them or the topic before you jump in with your own thing.
Make it about them first. I like that.
And when you do share, try to link it back to them somehow.
Keeps the connection going. And they also suggested broadening your horizons, trying new things.
Yeah, definitely. Like traveling or even just doing one new thing in your own city each month. Be a tourist at home.
Huh. Yeah.
It gives you fresh stuff to talk about, sure, but it also just broadens your perspective. Makes you more interesting, more open.
Seeing things from outside your usual bubble, studying other cultures, maybe.
Exactly. The article argues that really helps you become more welcoming to different viewpoints, and people pick up on that openness.
It sounds like a lot of it starts internally, though.
I think so.
Yeah.
The article really emphasizes being comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
That seems key.
How so?
Well, when you're genuinely at ease, you kind of project that, don't you? And it lets you sort of expect that people will want to connect. It's not arrogance, it's just comfort.
Which ties into self-awareness, I guess.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
They suggest actively asking people you trust. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Especially in how you interact.
Okay.
Focus on the strengths, obviously. But be honest about the weaknesses. Like, maybe you don't ask enough questions, or maybe you do tend to cross your arms. Knowing is the first step.
Right. Got to know the blind spots. Okay, so that gives us a good handle on making ourselves more approachable. But welcoming is also that active offering, isn't it? Hospitality.
Yes, and that Community Toolbox source really dives deep into this.
Yeah.
It defines hospitality as the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, or strangers.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Well, yes, but it notes how it's evolved.
Yeah.
We think of the hospitality industry now, but the roots are ancient, spiritual. Think hospice, hostel, hotel, hospital, all related.
Okay, I see the connection.
This source frames it as much more than just, putting out snacks. It calls it a sacred ancient art, something that makes room for everyone, cuts across cultural divides based on shared values.
And it uses stories to illustrate this, right? Like Abraham?
Yeah, Abraham is presented as a key example, offering rest, shelter, food, watching feet, protecting visitors.
Wow.
The source suggests this wasn't just being nice, it was about his faith, his spiritual qualities enabling that hospitality, and that he was, in a way, rewarded for embodying them.
So it's like an inner quality that fuels the outer action.
That's the idea. Cultivating those inner qualities helps you navigate tricky situations, maybe not take offense so easily, which is useful for anyone, really.
Then there's the Good Samaritan. That's a tough one.
Really tough. Especially because, as the source highlights, Samaritans and Jews were enemies. That context is crucial.
Makes the act incredibly powerful.
Totally. It's about moral courage, risking your own safety for this principle that, well, all life matters. It shows values aren't enough. You have to act on them.
Unconditional love, even for someone you're supposed to hate. Pushing the boundaries of neighbor.
Exactly. It asks if we're willing to be, like, spiritual activists for hospitality, extending kindness even when it's really hard or goes against the grain.
And they bring it forward, too, with that chaplain story in the jail.
Yeah, that's a modern example. Tense situation, potential hostage thing created by the guards, apparently.
Yeah.
But the chaplain stays centered by embodying this open, receptive, and nurturing love for humanity. That's the phrase used. It de-escalated things, earned respect.
So, again, it's that inner state having an outward effect.
And it shows that sometimes hospitality means getting uncomfortable, taking a risk. But the source sees that as growth, expanding your mind, your heart, learning the art of being hospitable, not just doing hospitable things.
That community toolbox source is packed with examples of this art in action.
It really is. Like hosting that young Japanese couple led to this great cultural exchange, learning about shokin art.
Which is?
Oh, it's a specific Japanese metal engraving technique.
Right.
Really intricate. And they even connected it back to samurai values, those who serve. Interesting link.
Very cool. And the example from Africa with the kids.
Yeah, in a remote area, teaching children to always cook extra food, just in case a traveler shows up.
Wow.
He teaches generosity from, like, an abundant heart, not from scarcity.
Yeah.
Instilling that others first idea really early.
Food seems to be a recurring theme. Shared meals.
Definitely. The Interfaith Foundation example on a campus, students, clergy, professors just eating together, spending time, building relationships naturally because hospitality is just like the baseline expectation there.
And they talk about actually teaching hospitality, too.
Yeah, like in Sunday schools or neighborhood forums.
Yeah.
Getting practical about it, training people, kids and adults, in everyday interactions, how to deal with family, friends, even, modern stuff like phones getting in the way of connection.
Even in the resort industry, it wasn't just about skills.
Right. Success, high occupancy, it was linked to cultivating those spiritual qualities of hospitality. They apparently focused on hiring for personality because that genuine warmth, that welcoming spirit.
You can't always train that.
Exactly. It's deeper.
And that unique bed and breakfast, that sounded really holistic.
It did. Setting a good table, welcoming everyone without bias, using profits for charity, building an eco-friendly, green home-like hospitality to the planet too, and creating a real sense of family for guests who are maybe looking for connection, not just anonymity. It wasn't just business. It was love in action, basically.
So hospitality isn't just a transaction. It's woven into life, culture, families even.
Yes, the Institute for Family Studies source makes that connection very strongly. It contrasts, say, American individualism with Arab culture's emphasis on family, clan, always thinking of others.
And how does that relate to problems?
Well, the argument is that in cultures with strong hospitality networks, difficulties like depression or marital stress are often navigated within that communal support system.
Ah, so it's not just individual coping.
Right. Hospitality actively fights loneliness, provides that social buffer.
How do they define hospitality in that context?
As an expression of love, openness, generosity of spirit, and orientation toward the other.
An orientation toward the other. I like that.
And that orientation is powerful. It stops you turning inward when things get tough. It builds the habit of serving others, which strengthens all relationships, including marriage.
There was a personal story in there, too.
Yeah, the author saw hospitality literally help heal marital problems. Putting others first, even when you have very little yourself, it's a powerful practice.
And they even suggested a link to divorce rates.
Kind of tentatively, yeah. Noting that cultures with strong hospitality traditions often have lower divorce rates, and citing some research that immigrant families in the U.S. who might keep some of those practices tend to stay together more. It's that constant practice of putting others first.
Okay, so we've got approachability, the art and practice of hospitality, its cultural and family impact. Now for something completely different, the science bit.
Yeah, this was really unexpected. The research from Emotion, linking physical warmth and social warmth.
Physical and social, how does that work?
It taps into embodied cognition, the idea that our physical feelings influence our social or emotional feelings.
Okay.
So feeling socially warm or cold might actually be triggered by physical temperature.
Seriously? Like,
Well, one study found that people reporting chronic loneliness tended to take warmer, longer baths or showers.
huh.
The suggestion is they might be unconsciously using physical warmth to sort of make up for the lack of social warmth.
Wow. A kind of self-regulation we don't even realize.
Seems like it. Another study worked the other way. Just holding a cold pack made people report feeling more lonely.
So physical coldness can trigger social coldness feelings.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And they tested the reverse too. Could physical warmth help after feeling rejected?
What did they find?
Study 3 had people recall a social rejection. Then they held either a warm pack or a neutral one. Holding the warm pack actually reduced their need for affiliation and trying to regulate their emotions.
So the physical warmth acted like a substitute, a comfort.
Yeah, almost like a restorative buffer against the social coldness.
And the craziest part is people don't consciously make this link.
Right. Study 4 showed people aren't aware they're doing this.
Yeah.
Taking a warm bath isn't consciously linked to feeling lonely. It seems to be deep, unconscious.
And there's a brain connection.
A potential one, yeah. The insular cortex processes both physical temperature and feelings of social warmth and trust. Suggests a maybe hardwired link.
Okay, mind slightly blown. So being welcoming might tap into something incredibly basic, even physical. To really make all this work, though, approachability, hospitality, maybe even warmth, you need empathy, right?
Right.
And acceptance.
Absolutely. The VTech work source, focusing on the hospitality industry, hammers home the importance of empathy for relationships, trust, understanding needs, leadership, all of it.
And they had that great example of the manager.
Yeah, the manager who'd actually been a bellman, especially one with international experience. They could understand a new foreign bellman's struggles way better.
Because they literally walked in their shoes.
Exactly. It's relating through shared experience, not just quoting a rule book. Builds empathy, builds trust.
And the source argues that kind of experience is invaluable for managers, but often missed.
Yeah, often overlooked. Hard to measure empathy on a spreadsheet, maybe, but its value in truly getting guest needs or problems is huge.
Makes sense. And paired with empathy, acceptance, the psychology today piece.
Right, welcoming people as they are. It starts by acknowledging, yeah, it's normal to wish people were different sometimes. Habits, choices, whatever.
But the problem isn't wishing.
It's the struggle, the resistance against their reality. Acceptance isn't agreement or approval. It's just acknowledging this is how they are right now.
Okay. And how do you practice that?
Mentally, consciously accepting the person, acknowledging all the complex things that made them who they are, and then letting go of that internal fight to change them.
Why is that hard?
Well, the source suggests we often avoid it because accepting reality means feeling uncomfortable, feelings disappointment, maybe frustration that come up when people aren't who we want them to be.
But acceptance is a gift.
A gift that gives back is how they put it. When people feel truly accepted by you, the relationship often improves. And for you, letting go of that struggle brings inner peace.
Wow. Okay. We have really covered a lot. From making ourselves approachable to the deep art of hospitality, its impact, the surprising science, and now empathy and acceptance.
Yeah, pulling it together, that community toolbox source really grounded genuine hospitality in things like mutual respect, the golden rule, basically reciprocity.
Treat others as you want to be treated.
And friendly, interdependent cooperation. It's about working together.
So why does all this matter for you listening? It seems like understanding and trying to practice these things, approachability, hospitality, empathy, acceptance, it's about building stronger connections.
In all parts of life, right? Relationships, work, community, just out and about. It's about fostering a more welcoming environment from you, not just around you.
Of course, it's not always easy. The sources mention challenges.
Definitely. Simple disagreements fueled by ego or even huge societal challenges like integrating immigrants or refugees. One source mentions that neutrally as a major challenge, needing a welcoming approach.
Which makes us think, right, how does your own willingness to be welcoming, call it a spiritual asset, or just your personal stance, how does that affect how you react in tough situations, big or small.
And that point about daily life being a training ground is powerful.
How so?
Well, dealing with people, community work, it forces us to confront our own stuff, right?
Yeah.
Fear, maybe shame, arrogance, things that get in the way of being truly hospitable.
So cultivating hospitality is also self-work.
An inner journey, yeah.
Yeah.
Self-realization, revealing the good stuff that's already in us.
Ultimately, it seems the art of hospitality is about being a welcoming presence.
And that presence, as one source puts it so well, is a self-nourishing and self-sustaining blessing. It benefits everyone.
So this deep dive really shows being welcoming is, well, it's a lot of things working together. Personal habits, active kindness, empathy, acceptance, maybe even tapping into that weird physical warmth thing.
And it's not just grand gestures, is it? It's in the small daily choices,
Hmm.
how we orient ourselves to others.
Which leads to a final thought for you to take away, drawing from all this. How might consciously cultivating that orientation toward the other, that openness, that generosity we talked about, how might that really transform your relationships and maybe even your whole sense of connection in the world?